Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Today we're going to get a little tinfoil hatty, but not too tinfoil hatty. I'm just going to show you a bunch of facts and details, and then I'm going to give you guys a couple of different lectures on some things that are happening, and then we can make our own decisions, correct? All right, so everybody probably has seen the news in the Americas of what happened with Charlie Kirk. This incident is extremely, I would say, chaotic. We are in the throes of Eclipse season right now. If you guys need help with Eclipse season, if you're going through it, reach out to me. I'll work with you. You can email me or you can go on my website. But plugging my services and all that aside, this was an incredibly, extremely chaotic, crazy, I think it's very out of left field. Nobody really saw it coming kind of event. Now, with eclipses, we often have this type of energy where people get unalived. You know, they a lot of murder or a lot of death occurs during eclipses. This has been throughout thousands of years of human history. You've got all these different superstitious / spiritual cultures all throughout the ages that have used eclipses as a means to perform human sacrifices and things like that. So already esoterically, we're getting into some extremely weird territory. However, although a lot of people may have found Charlie Kirk extremely controversial, I was not somebody who was really heavily inundated with his philosophies or his videos and his content. I think that a lot of the points that he made were good. There were some points that I didn't fully agree with of certain things that he said, but there is no doubt in my mind, at least from my personal perspective, from what I've seen, nobody has been able to, in the last week or so, come up with any real solid evidence that would point this man to be a racist, xenophobic, homophobic, blah, 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 blah. I think he probably had some really strong opinions on things like marriage and marital rights, LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff. But this is probably one of the most milk toast, lukewarm individuals that I've seen that has been given a platform. There's that other guy, Nick Fuentes, who is like way more beyond what this man was. He seemed like, he was my age. I'm 31. He's 31. This guy was a father, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, everybody's a father, everybody's a mother, everybody has kids, everybody has a family, but the call supporting the violence, I mean, I completely condone anything of the sort. Now, if you guys have read my book, Psycosmos, A Synthesis on Human History and Spirituality, in chapter 61, I talk about how in 1997 there was a book that was very popularized called The Fourth Turning, and this was written by ex-CIA, FBI individuals. They claimed that due to not only the cycles of human history, but also loosely, they don't actually admit it, but also loosely connected to the astrology of today, the era that we're going through, that they expected there to be some kind of a uprising, a coup, or some kind of civil unrest within the Americas by the year 2025. Now we're starting to see that. So this is going to be a very deep video. If you, and I'm going to say this next part, it's probably going to be the most insulting thing I say in this video. If you're a low IQ individual that doesn't understand the things that I'm going to talk about in this video, just unfollow me. If you're the type of person who's going to sit there and claim that you're a spiritual person, or maybe even not a spiritual person, but you think you're a good person and you don't need any form of faith whatsoever, and you're going to say that, oh, well, this guy kind of deserved it and karma is a bitch and blah, blah, blah. I've seen a lot of really negative talk, and, we should never be wishing violence or any type of thing upon anybody. It's really sad. It's a horrible tragedy of what happened here, and I feel really bad. Again, politically, I'm in the middle, and I've never been a super political person. I have done enough research into the politics of things like, Epstein and all that, but there's a lot that goes into this. So if you guys have not seen a lot of the clips that have been resurfacing, I'm just going to kind of jump right into it here. If you guys have not seen the clips that have been resurfacing, it seems as though in the last 2 or so months, Charlie Kirk has somewhat flipped on his stance of Israel. And a lot of people, rightfully so, I believe, are bringing up that this could have been potentially one of the reasons why he passed away, unfortunately. Now, a lot of people already know who he is and what has happened over in this past week. But really, I think the focal point of where people's attention, especially as Americans, should be is this. Now, if you're somebody, I'm going to say this again, and this reiterates the point I made earlier. If you are an individual as an American and you don't know why this happened, if you think this was some kind of crazy left ideologue who, some 22-year-old kid who took a rifle up on the roof of the building when this is like been very well established by this point that, we have an issue in this country with our protectors, our bodyguards, not being able to pretty much do their job, which already to me seems insidious at the best. I think I think there's something going on here. And again, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial. I'm going to share a lot of information with you guys that I don't see a lot of people talking about in this video, and I think it's going to clarify a lot of things. But the fact that we keep having these issues, Donald Trump, who seems to be very pro-Israel, was also almost assassinated a couple of times. Whether people and see, a lot of people say that some of these things are fake. Some of these things, who knows, right? I'm not saying whether or not this or that. I'm going to give you the details on the highest level of what's really going on. Israel really needs to be our major focal point. Now, with that being said, does that make me anti-Semitic, and am I going to sit here and preach negative opinions about Jewish people? No, and that's because I've studied Hebrew. I've studied at a yeshiva before. It wasn't for very long. It was for like less than a week, but in that less than a week, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how specific Jewish groups see specific people. And if you're not familiar with the Sabbatean Frankists, if you're not familiar with the Erev Rav of the Jewish faith, if you're just a Christian or a spiritual person, or maybe you're not any of those things and you lack the fundamental information, that's totally fine. Judaism is one of the most complicated religions. There's multiple books, and in those books there's multiple volumes. You have to understand, this is not like the Christian Bible where it's just Old and New Testament. Okay, this goes way beyond that. Okay, they have the Torah, they've got the Talmud, they've got the Zohar. The Zohar itself already is made up of like 20 something books. It's so hyper complex as far as a religion goes. You have to understand, these people believe first and foremost that they're God's chosen. But what does that really mean? The world essentially, and this goes into my cosmobiological model. You can go watch the video I did on that. These people essentially believe that they own the land, the strip of land, Israel, which stands for Isis, Ra, Elohim, which is the Holy Trinity. These people believe that they are at the center of the universe, and I quite literally mean the center of the universe. Okay, they believe that it's the center of the world. They believe that it is an extremely holy place, and they believe that the decisions and the information and the things that occur in Israel echo throughout the rest of the world, and also the universe. You have to understand that this is a severely, deeply strange, I would say heretical, ideological belief. It's idolatry to some degree. And what's ironic is that a lot of people who are on the darker aspect of the Jewish faith, You've got wonderful people in the Jewish community. Don't get me wrong. I've met a lot of them. I learned Hebrew from a lot of them, and I don't know it like perfectly like I know English. I couldn't speak the language for the life of me, but I did learn the alphabet, and I did learn the etymological secrets between the letters and all that. This is an extremely deep, detailed religion, and quite honestly, many of them consider Christians to be idolaters, and they consider Christians to be fake faith-based people. They really, a lot of them don't like Christians, and I would argue, from my experience, I also partied with Muslims in college. Like, I say partied loosely. By partied, I mean I was the only white dude there in a room of like 70 Muslims who were asking me questions. Only a handful of them spoke English. They had flags all over the walls. I didn't know what they were saying. And we would we broke bread together. We ate chicken and rice off of a majorly large platter that was was on the floor. Like, I have gone with multiple different groups of people, and I can tell you the people who I've met who come from Jewish background are much more closed-minded than the Muslims that I met. And this was all in America. So from both perspectives, I think I would rather hang out with the Muslim guys, to be honest, because it just seemed like they had much more of an open mind. Okay, so what am I even really getting at here? This man here, if you can see you can see the thing kind of popping up. This man is Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the prime minister of Israel. You should really know who he is. Now, here's something that I'm going to kind of go off in left field. If you weren't aware, early July, they performed what was called the red heifer ritual. Now, this is a big deal because they've not done this in like thousands upon thousands of years or something along those lines. And this is supposed to signify the very beginning of the book of Revelations in the Bible. So we've already kind of worked within that. Now, you have to understand, I'll give you my theoretical model of what's going on here, and I'm just going to say it bluntly. The Jewish faith did not accept Jesus Christ. The Jewish faith is also very much so in a position of power right now. Not that they control everything. It goes a little bit deeper than that, but there are a lot of influences and leaders within organizations, banking, etc., that kind of showcase that there is a big Jewish influence on those areas. Not to mention that AIPAC is one of the largest super PACs that gains donors and support in America compared to like almost any other PAC. So you can see in America, specifically in the Western world, we have a major Jewish influence. We're a Judeo-Christian country, or so they say. So this is it makes perfect sense. Now, from the perspective of what's going on, the Jewish faith, they're on a timeline. Okay, they're on a timeline because I'm just giving you the straight up facts and details here. The Jewish faith believes that next decade in the 2030s is going to potentially be the return of Christ, because it would be roughly about 2,000 years from his death. And the reason that's important is because of what's called the precession of the equinoxes, which is a roughly 24,000 year cycle where every roughly 2,000 years we go through a different age. If you've heard that we're in the age of Aquarius, this is exactly why these people are rushing, because the age of Aquarius signifies the God's kingdom and domain. We were in the age of Pisces. Jesus is known as the fish. Pisces is all about revelations and deception. Now we're moving into the age of Aquarius, which is the connection of as above to the so below, and vice versa. So what they are trying to do, what the Jewish faith is trying to do right now, is they're essentially trying to summon what they believe is their Messiah, because they did not accept Jesus Christ as their Messiah. This is rooted in Sabbatean Frankist culture, elite culture. If you've seen that there's something called the Birthday Book from Jeffrey Epstein, which has just recently come out, you'll actually come to realize, I think it was on page 134 of that book that got published, and Reddit and a bunch of other websites were all over it. I think it was page 134. I could be misquoting that. It was starting around that page 130 or so, where Epstein was going off about how he worked with a lot of astrologers. Now, you have to understand that the Mazzaroth in the Jewish faith is the astrological wheel. In the Old Testament, you have the vision of Ezekiel, where Ezekiel sees God sitting on a throne made of four faces: the lion, the bull, the man, and the eagle. Those are the four corners of the zodiac: Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius, respectively, the four fixed signs. Okay, Scorpio is the eagle. If you didn't know, Scorpio is not just a scorpion; it's also an eagle or a phoenix, or sometimes a serpent. So there's a lot of really deep symbology here. And the Jewish faith, they're really big into astrology. That's why they had Jewish kings wandering the desert that were looking for baby Jesus, following stars and patterns, because they believed that around that time of year zero, where the age of Aries went into the age of Pisces, there was a huge reset and the Messiah would come. And if you were to ask my opinion as a Christian, or somebody who's more of a Christianized esoteric thinker, or Essenian, Rosicrucian inspired, Jungian, I guess you could say, Carl Jung, esoteric thinker, I would say that they were correct. I would say that they believed correctly on this. So getting into it, why this is a big deal is because these people had essentially performed the ritual on the red heifer. They're all saying that it was a rehearsal. That doesn't really make sense, because they wouldn't really do a rehearsal. So they have the ashes, which is one of the major components of what they pretend, I guess you could say, to believe in their faith is what's going to bring back their messianic figure. Now, what's funny is when I studied with a lot of Jewish men in the yeshiva back years ago, it almost seemed like they all thought that they were this return of the Messiah. They all thought that they were these wise, intelligent, multi-layered people, and a lot of them actually did believe in Christ being the Messiah of the time. But now they think that there is going to be a new Messiah, and it's going to essentially defeat this negative spirit which they believe Christ to be. So it's really an inversion against the Christian faith, and this is why Charlie Kirk, who was a Christian, got pretty much taken out. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. I think this is probably one of them. I'm going to play a little bit of this clip, and then I'll kind of add some context here.
So we've seen news this morning that, quite honestly, I'm a little confused by, and I was hoping you could navigate it and help us understand, which is that Israel bombed Qatar, which houses a lot of Hamas officials. What happened here? And if I were to introduce just the skeptical question, will this potentially endanger America's own interests in the Middle East? So please, Ben, help me better understand the situation.
The reason why this is really important, I hope that my mic is okay. The reason why this is really important, guys, is because Charlie Kirk was very pro-Israel for a very long time, up until about last month. And then after about last month, he started questioning a lot of the actions that Israel is taking. Now, the reason why Israel is taking these actions specifically is because there's something called Greater Israel. And why is Israel continuously bashing, these peace treaties, right? Like Trump did a peace treaty, and then they still were bombing people. They're still bombing people in Qatar. They're still bombing people all over the place in Gaza. Why are they doing that? Now, again, I'm not a political person. You don't throw your BS of saying I'm right or left wing, because I'm neither of those things. I'm somebody who's intelligent enough to actually understand the deep root of what these people believe. Their fanatical extremist beliefs, which are backed by religious supremacy. It's really it is a form of genetic supremacy. People say white supremacy, black supremacy, whatever. No, this goes beyond that. This is not only a religion, but a root race of people, which aren't even the people that originally were the people. There's a whole thing here in the history of the Khazars, which basically superseded the original Jewish faith, which is what the biblical Jewish faith is. And this is a whole story, guys. This is a whole history. And essentially, Netanyahu recently, the prime minister, he said that he believes in the idea of Greater Israel. Now remember, keep in mind, Israel, if I can open up this image, Israel is this little strip. They want to take all this land. They want to take all the way to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq. They want all this land because they want a kingdom. And if you study their books, they believe that they're not only entitled to that kingdom, but they believe that they are going to get it and that the rest of the people in the world are going to be their slaves. You have to really understand the depth of where we're going with this. This is not a good look for these people. And so Charlie Kirk, you can find tons of more clips. He started questioning this narrative of Israel, the modern Israel. He started questioning what they were doing. And he's only been doing that for about 6 weeks, since the beginning of August. So it's crazy that within about 6 weeks, they've completely flipped on him. There's also reports coming out that Benjamin Netanyahu offered Charlie Kirk financial support, and he declined it. And you don't turn down Bibi. If you turn down Bibi, he's gonna turn you down into the dirt. So that's what happened to poor Charlie Kirk.
May his memory be a blessing.
So what I'd also like to bring up in this clip here is Benjamin Netanyahu, immediately upon Charlie Kirk passing away, Netanyahu tweets, Trump tweets, everybody in the Israeli powerhouse systems here seems to want to be commenting on this, which is extremely strange. This is very weird. It's almost as if they're big into sacrifices as it is. It almost seems as if they did that on purpose. Keep in mind that this happened on 9/10, all right? Now, why is that important? Well, because the day before that was the 999 portal. It was September 9th, 2025. 2 plus 2 plus 5 is 9. So 999 is a triple nine. It's very similar to how you have 666. And 666 has a bunch of different meanings. Well, 999 also has a bunch of different meanings. It's a culmination of endings and sacrifices. And that is exactly why 9/11 happened on 9/11, because a lot of these religious extremists believe that 9/11, around this time period right now, as I'm even making this video, is a cleansing moment in time. It's a cleansing era of sorts. It's a cleansing time period of the world in which that human sacrifices are performed, because it's Virgo season, and Virgo is the gut. And, you find a lot of energy manipulation in the body that goes through the gut. It's like an extremely deep, detailed thing, but it's essentially that sacrifices are made during these times. Now, it's also an eclipse. So during eclipses, sacrifices are also made. So this is a really big deal, and it was very obvious that something was going to happen. And to be quite honest, today's the 13th. I could see even more happening. I could see even worse things than this actually happening, because it's all about human sacrifice. And now, why is that? Well, because we're on the culmination of the fall equinox. And you have to understand that in the Jewish faith and Jewish religion, right around the fall equinox, they have one of their most largest holidays. And during that holiday, it's a time of celebration. And the reason why they do it around the fall equinox is because it directly opposes the spring equinox. The fall equinox is where death begins. It's, so you have the east and the west. They have the western wall, which is what they worship. And they worship this wall because they believe that it's filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. There's a lot of weird stuff that they do with that wall, but it's a western facing wall because they're all about the western side of things. They're about the sun setting. They don't like the sun. And that's not just Jesus, the Son of God, but it's also, they don't like the sun itself. They like darkness. They like hiding in the shadows. They're very fixated on the lunar. They're much more of a darker, obscene force. And when it comes to their religion, they are, they have they actually preach and teach the rabbis to sleep during the day and stay up all night, so that because during the nighttime, that's where all of the true wisdom of God comes forward. It's a very backwards and inverted ideology, which is why they do backwards and inverted things. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad or that Jews are wrong or anything. I'm not making any anti-Semitic claims like that. However, when you understand the religion, it starts to make a lot more sense from the context of what's going on today. So, because of how I can't remember if I think it's Rosh Hashanah. I think it's Rosh Hashanah. I don't think let me just Google this real quick, because my brain I can't spell it. Rosh Hashanah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, sunset. Okay, so see, Rosh Hashanah this year is going to be on the new moon in Virgo, which is going to be a solar eclipse. So they're actually going to have their Rosh Hashanah holiday on the day of the solar eclipse, which is very rare, and it's also a very big deal. It's also a new moon in, again, Virgo. Now, why is that important? Because they believe that their area of land is ruled by the sign of Virgo. Virgo is the gut. It's the virgin. It's where Christ was born, in the belly of the virgin. It's like an extremely deep thing. So this is a very, very largely crazy time period, because this is where there's going to be a lot of these occult rituals. And again, I think that over the next week, you're going to see something even worse than this. I'm really honest with you guys. Don't come back here and say you were right, because I don't want to be right. I just want people to be protected. I want people to stay safe, and I want everybody to be happy and live a good life, live a normal life. This is not normal. This is probably one of the scariest and worst times to be alive in American history of what we're seeing right now. This is, in my opinion, a hostile takeover from a foreign government. And this is proof of that, right? We've got Benjamin Netanyahu making claims coming on our media shortly after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and he's just
the Prime
saying
Minister
things.
of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, in focus now. Prime Minister, you have your own memories of Charlie Kirk. Please share them.
Well, Harris, before I do that, I have to say that we're just heartbroken. Myself, my wife.
Now, I'm really good with psychoanalytics, facial recognition, body language. I want you to watch the body language of Bibi, okay? Benjamin Netanyahu over here. If we watch his body language, it's abnormal. He looks away when he speaks. Not like he's reading off of a teleprompter. It's like he can't stay honest. And you've also got to watch his mouth. He has little micro expressions of smiling. I studied micro expressions under Paul Ekman's data, not under him like directly, but under reading Paul Ekman's data, he was like the master of this.
My family, my son actually, on his 2019 visit to Israel, had lunch with him and his wife, Erica. We're shattered first as human beings because a great human being has been taken from us.
He licks his lips.
Was an extraordinary friend. He said...
He's got his notes. Like, this isn't really genuine. I'm also going to show you this clip here. Netanyahu dismisses insane conspiracy theory the day after he's killed that Israel was behind assassination amid growing swirl of online rumors. Now, there's a lot of different things that happens in politics, guys. Like, think about how many people get assassinated a year, how many people get shot a year. You don't see Donald Trump and other world leaders coming out and for foreign governments and saying, yeah, we didn't do that. We had nothing to do with that. I just find this behavior extremely odd. I want to see what you guys think of this as well.
They have no limits. When you hate Jews, when you hate the Jewish state, you're willing to say anything and promote all these absurd rumors. And by the way, they're willing to kill us all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing. And over the centuries, when Jews, especially in the Middle Ages, the horrific Middle Ages, the worst things were said about Jews you couldn't possibly believe. We were poisoning the wells. We were drinking the blood of Christian children. You name it. I mean, these things, that continued actually up to the Holocaust. The Nazis said the same thing. We're carrying vermin.
So I just want to pause here. This is about Charlie Kirk passing away. And Netanyahu gets on our news and starts spouting off about conspiracy theories of Jewish people during the Middle Ages poisoning wells and sacrificing Christian children. I mean, again, from a psychological perspective, which I can absolutely attest to, being someone who's, with my background and working towards getting my PhD for so many years and everything else and acquiring it, I can tell you that this is not normal behavior. To sit there and just start spouting about, he was such a good friend, but we're the victims really here because now everybody thinks that we did this. And this is a leader of a foreign government who, by the way, in the same week was bombing Qatar and was bombing a whole bunch of other areas in that greater Israel map area of what they're trying to take. Almost as if this entire operation was a distraction. Now we're going to be claiming it's some 22-year-old kid who nobody can figure out if he was right or left-leaning, and none of it really adds up or makes a lot of sense. How did a 22-year-old kid go with all the bodyguards and all the information, intelligence information, everything else? It's almost like Charlie might have known some things, or that he was going against some things that he really, maybe should have been more careful on. This is where I'd like to get into Kabbalah. If you're unfamiliar with Kabbalah, this is the Jewish pathway to God. I'm not explaining all this stuff. You guys can watch tons of the other videos that we have publicly. What I'd like to talk about is the fact that there is a lagging amount of information within the Jewish faith. Now, when I went to the yeshiva, I brought this to their attention, and I taught a bunch of Jewish people, and I talked with them about Christ, and I explained you can't have a system of 11. Now, if you are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, the Kabbalah has a system of 11, what's called Sephiroth, which basically means spheres. Okay, so they have 11 spheres. Each one is like an archetype, so to speak. You know how we have 12 zodiac signs and they all mean different things and they all have different properties? That's kind of like what this is. It's like if each one of these represented a different letter, for example. That would be another example of what I could say. But the problem with this system is that we don't have a system of 11 in almost anything. When you're really modeled after God and you're modeled after the image of everything, it's a model of 12 or 13. Normally the 12 creates an entity or a whole, which is the 13. So for example, you have Jesus Christ, who is the number 13, and he's got 12 followers. You've got 12 tribes of Israel, and altogether they create the whole of Israel, which is number 13. You've got the Kabbalah, and the Kabbalah has 11, but really, I made the argument it actually has 12, and the 12th one would go on that kind of, I guess you can't see my mouse, but it's on the bottom rung, and I wish I had a better depiction for it, but essentially what I'm getting at here is there is a 12th aspect to this, and it is the aspect of the sacrificial element, which they don't actually account for in their Kabbalah. It's a sacrificed element, which wouldn't really be seen. It would be a broken sphere, just like Jesus came and he died and he became a broken man, and then he died and gets resurrected. It's an extremely deep concept, but what you need to understand about Kabbalah is it's not a completed system. It's not, because we have all the evidence to show you have 12 ribs in the rib cage. You have 12 cranial nerves in the brain. 11 doesn't make sense. 11 has never made sense. So it's an inversion of sorts, because they don't actually have a completed system, which is what pisses them off a lot, which is why they reject a lot of things like Christ being their Messiah, even though Jesus was from Bethlehem. He was a Jew, I guess you could say, by the accounts of his lineage and where he grew up and everything else. But he was more of an Essenian. He was more in the even in the Bible it states he was of the order of Melchizedek, which is a secret society, and that was centered around deep esoteric understanding, which is why the rabbinical Jews at the time persecuted Jesus. And so this is a really big deal, because if you were to ask my opinion, they have an incomplete system. I could go into, I have videos on my channel, you can go watch, they're from years ago, where me and my friends detail and describe how this is not a completed system. And they're trying to use this information to essentially manipulate our politicians into believing that they need to summon this antichristal figure. So now we have Christian Zionists who are all within our Congress and our political parties, and they essentially believe and fall for this information, unfortunately, thinking that they're doing something right, but in reality they're bringing forth like this darkness. The World Economic Forum 2030 agenda is all about that too. They're really scared. They want to get this done by 2030. So with that being said, I want to give my perspective. We've got a lot of extremely chaotic energy over the next week. Okay, so this is my warning, because we're about a week away from that 22nd date of their Rosh Hashanah 2025. It's going to be on a solar eclipse, okay? And not only is it going to be on a solar eclipse, but as the week progresses, I'm actually here. I'm going to go by 1 week, and we'll be on the 21st, okay? So we're looking at the 21st. We've got the sun and the moon performing that solar eclipse opposing Saturn and Neptune, which are two very malefic planets. Not to mention Mars here is going to be making what's called a square, which is a very negative placement, to Pluto. Okay, so this entire next week, guys, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. I don't think that the Charlie Kirk thing was a one-off. I think that we're going to see some really insane and intense chaotic news, unfortunately. I don't want to speak that into existence. I would really like it to not be that way. But I really wanted to warn you guys, and not fearmonger. I really want to warn you guys so that everybody can prepare, because I think that you are going to see some really, really crazy stuff over this next, I would say, week or two period. All right, there's probably going to be some form of a ritual that's performed next Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and I would be I would just try to be cautious. Okay, try to be cautious. Not that I think like you got to worry too much about travel. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just saying, if things get really dicey and crazy and chaotic, it's all going to be okay. But we have to educate ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. And if you're interested in learning more about this information, or if you'd like to have a one-on-one session with me, if you'd like to join a community of people, I have an online school called Psycosmos University. You can come and check this out, okay? You can come You know, join my community. If you, I have an AI tool, I have books, I have online courses on Udemy. I've got tons of stuff, guys. I've got free resources on my website. I really care about people, and, you know, doing this is really, really intense and tough. You know, and so all the support really does help. I would really appreciate if you guys could, you know, find a way, if you guys are really struggling during this week, to come work with me, because I love working with people. I love helping people. But other than that, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm going to pause for today's video, but feel free to reach out to me. I love each and every one of you. Please stay safe out there. And I hope that we can all have a wonderful week, and God bless each and every one of you. I'm sending all my love. Take care. Reach out if you guys need me, and I will see you in the next video.